Surge pricing is often described as a tool, a neutral mechanism, a way to balance supply and demand. On paper, it sounds logical. When demand rises and supply is limited, prices increase. Higher prices attract more suppliers and discourage excess consumption. The system is supposed to regulate itself. But for most people, surge pricing does not feel neutral. It feels personal. It shows up when you are tired, when you are late, when you are stressed, when you have no alternative. A ride that normally costs $15 suddenly costs $40. A flight seat doubles in price overnight. A hotel room spikes during a conference or a storm. A food delivery order quietly adds extra fees because it is raining or because everyone else is hungry at the same time. In those moments, surge pricing does not feel like a market signal. It feels like leverage. And leverage is uncomfortable when you are the one without choices. Surge pricing works by reacting to real-time demand. When more people want a service than there are providers available, algorithms raise prices automatically. Companies often explain this as efficiency. Higher prices are meant to encourage more drivers to log on, more sellers to participate, or more inventory to be allocated. That explanation makes sense in theory, but real life does not operate in ideal conditions. Demand spikes are not random. They cluster around moments when people are already constrained. After work, late at night, during bad weather, during emergencies, during holidays, during travel disruptions. These are not optional moments. They are necessity moments. When prices rise precisely when flexibility disappears, the system stops feeling responsive and starts feeling extractive. One of the main reasons surge pricing feels predatory is because price becomes disconnected from value. The service itself does not improve. The ride is not safer. The food is not better. The seat is not more comfortable. Only the price changes. People are not paying more because they are receiving more. They are paying more because they need the service now. That difference matters psychologically. Most people accept paying more for higher quality or better outcomes. What feels unfair is paying more for the same thing simply because timing is working against you. Ride-sharing platforms like Uber and Lyft are the most familiar examples. A trip across town might cost $15 during a quiet afternoon. That same trip can cost $40 or $50 during rush hour, after a concert, or during a storm. The distance does not change. The driver does not change. The route does not change. What changes is urgency. If you are tired, stranded, or trying to get home safely, the surge price feels less like a choice and more like a penalty for needing transportation at the wrong time. Airlines operate under a similar logic, but over longer timelines. A seat on a Delta, United, or American Airlines flight can cost dramatically different amounts depending on when it is booked. Someone planning a vacation months in advance may pay a fraction of what someone pays, booking the same seat days before departure. People traveling for emergencies, work obligations, or family crises often pay the highest prices. Not because the service improves, but because flexibility is gone. Urgency becomes expensive. Hotels follow the same pattern. During conventions, holidays, natural disasters, or peak travel seasons, room prices rise sharply on platforms like Marriott, Hilton, or Booking.com. The room itself does not change. The bed is the same. The walls are the same. The amenities are the same. What changes is demand. When people need shelter the most, prices often climb the fastest. Even when price caps or regulations exist, the perception of being charged more during vulnerable moments leaves a lasting impression. Ticketing platforms push surge pricing into real-time visibility. On platforms like Ticketmaster, prices can rise while you are actively viewing them. A concert ticket that costs $100 can become $150 by the time you refresh the page. Watching a price increase while you hesitate creates pressure. The fear is no longer missing the event. It is missing the price. That fear accelerates decisions. And accelerated decisions are rarely reflective ones. What is more striking is how this logic has spread into everyday purchases. Fast food chains such as McDonald's and Wendy's have publicly discussed experimenting with dynamic pricing models through digital menus. Prices can change based on time of day, location, or demand. A meal might cost more during lunch rushes or late nights even though the food itself is identical. This represents a shift in how people experience pricing. Hunger becomes a variable. Timing becomes a cost. Food delivery platforms like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Instacart already operate this way. Delivery fees increase during busy hours, bad weather, or holidays. Sometimes base prices rise. Sometimes additional service fees appear. By the time the order is placed, the total cost often bears little resemblance to the price shown at the beginning. Convenience and urgency combine, and the decision becomes emotional rather than rational. Even grocery pricing has begun to reflect similar principles. While not always labeled as surge pricing, algorithmic adjustments, personalized discounts, and digital pricing experiments at large retailers like Amazon and major grocery chains shift costs based on timing and behavior. People shopping late, rushing purchases, or relying on convenience often pay more. Not because production costs increased, but because the system detects reduced price sensitivity. Across all of these examples, the pattern is consistent. Prices rise not when value increases, but when options decrease. Over time, this reshapes how people think about spending. The question stops being whether something is worth the price and becomes whether waiting will make it worse. That shift changes behavior. People act faster. They accept higher costs. They normalize financial pressure. They stop evaluating value and start managing urgency. When surge pricing appears occasionally, it feels frustrating. When it appears everywhere, it becomes exhausting. There is also an equity issue baked into surge pricing. It rewards flexibility and punishes constraint. People with flexible schedules, multiple transportation options, or higher incomes can avoid peak pricing. People without those advantages cannot. Someone working late does not control when they leave. Someone without a car cannot switch modes of transport. Someone dealing with an emergency cannot wait for prices to normalize. The same system treats these people differently, not based on choice, but based on circumstance. Over time, that compounds inequality. Supporters of surge pricing often argue that it increases supply, that higher prices encourage more drivers to log on or more sellers to participate. Sometimes that happens. But from the consumer's perspective, the surge feels immediate while the relief feels delayed. Prices rise instantly. Supply responds slowly, if at all. That imbalance reinforces the perception that systems are optimized for revenue rather than service. Surge pricing also trains people to accept instability as normal. When prices fluctuate constantly, budgeting becomes harder. Planning becomes harder. Expectations erode. You are never quite sure what something will cost. You only know that it might cost more later. That uncertainty creates background stress. Not dramatic panic, but constant calculation. A low-level vigilance that follows people through daily life. That mental load is rarely acknowledged, but it matters. The deeper issue is not surge pricing itself. It is where it is applied. Dynamic pricing in optional markets feels different from dynamic pricing in essential ones. When surge pricing applies to entertainment, people can opt out. When it applies to transportation, food, shelter, or access, opting out becomes difficult. At that point, pricing power starts to resemble extraction rather than exchange. This does not mean surge pricing should never exist. It means it should be examined through a human lens, not just an economic one. Markets do not operate in isolation. They operate inside real lives with real constraints. When pricing systems ignore those constraints, they create outcomes that feel unfair, even if they are technically efficient. Efficiency without empathy often looks like exploitation. The reason surge pricing provokes such strong reactions is because it reveals something uncomfortable. Many modern pricing systems are not designed to serve people at their best moments. They are designed to extract value at their weakest ones, not through force, through timing. Understanding this does not eliminate surge pricing, but it reframes it. It explains why these moments feel frustrating, angering, or humiliating. It reminds people that discomfort is not irrational. It is a response to systems that prioritize responsiveness over responsibility. Surge pricing is not just about supply and demand. It is about who absorbs uncertainty, who carries urgency, and who has the power to wait. When pricing systems become invisible and automatic, the only thing people feel is the outcome. A higher number, a rushed decision, a sense of being cornered. That is why surge pricing feels predatory. Not because it is always wrong, but because it often operates where choice is weakest.